going on, everybody? This is Drew from Drew Story News. Welcome to another episode of the Drew Story News podcast, and we have a really good conversation today. Two people who I know. One is a chiropractic doctor with a degree in clinical nutrition. The other is my niece, a registered nurse and a holistic health practitioner. And we're gonna start off, a little smooth, and then towards the middle, we're gonna punch it. So stay tuned for that, and I'm gonna bring them in on the conversation. 1 second. Hey, Adrienne, how are you? Can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Ruthie is probably going to be on in probably a minute, so we can go ahead and start. So, hey, this is Drew from Drew Story News, and I'm talking with Dr. Adrienne McLeod. I'm being formal. I knew you your whole life. But Dr. Adrienne, you have a degree in psychology, a master's in clinical nutrition, and you got your doctor of chiropractic degree. And so very interested in talking to you about the madness that is going on today. So we're waiting for Ruthie, my niece, who is a registered nurse and a holistic health practitioner. So while we're waiting, here she is. Just logged her in. Hey, my niece. Hey, Ruthie.
Hi. Hey, hello.
This is my beautiful niece, Ruthie, who is a registered nurse and a holistic health practitioner. I was just introducing Adrienne, Dr. Adrienne McLeod. She has a master's in clinical nutrition and got her doctorate in her chiropractic degree. So, guys, it's awesome to have you on. I actually knew both of you your whole lives. So this is family here. So we'll start with you, Adrienne. What is your feeling about the current state of healthcare with the mandates and the requirements? Let's just jump right in.
I think it's a shame when people aren't trusted to take care of themselves and their families and do their own research to better themselves. And when the state jumps in and tries to take over for them, I think it's a dangerous place to be. So that's basically the gist of it. I treat a lot of families, and I treat, children, babies from when they're 6 weeks old, all the way into their 90s. And, people really do know how to take care of themselves if you let them. And people are very aware of their own health. They're with themselves 24/7. And I don't think anybody should be able to override their own beliefs about their own health.
Right. And I'm going to ask you the same question, Ruthie, but before we get to that, just tell us a little bit. I gave you guys introductions, but you guys can introduce yourselves a little bit and your, path to healthcare.
Sure, I'll go ahead. So I'm a registered nurse BSN. I've been a nurse for almost 9 years. It'll be in January, mostly in the ER, also in pediatrics. And I also serve alongside a shamanic practitioner whose studio I'm at right now. So I'm an energy practitioner and am a mentor to initiates in our mystery school. So that's a little bit about what I do. I have one leg in the allopathic realm. And for a long time, many years, actually only 2 years after being a registered nurse, did I start to see some issues. So I spoke up and I allowed my voice to be heard and was joining councils and committees in the hospital to make change. And I very quickly realized that you can only make change to a certain degree that you're allowed to. When it comes to going all the way up, there is like a glass ceiling. And so I became very frustrated and then switched paths into other ways where I could truly help people. And my mission is to help others understand their own intuitive knowing, such that I never have to tell them, you should take this or do this. They know for themselves. And I would love to see a world that is more empowered, and to see more people rise up and speak up for themselves because they know themselves and are always revisiting that knowing as we evolve throughout our consciousness and evolution. So that's a little bit about what I do. Did I answer the question?
Very nice. And Adrienne, could you just walk us through your path to healthcare?
Absolutely. So I've been a chiropractor for about 10 years now. And, in my mind's eye, nutrition and chiropractor were always basically related to each other, because sometimes, a patient might have a structural instability, but it might be because there's an underlying biochemical imbalance. So you kind of have to address both things. And the psychology part kind of always brought it all together for me, because, a patient might not want to heal for certain reasons, and they might feel like they might not deserve to heal, and they might feel safer being in pain, which sounds weird, but it's actually really pretty common. So to kind of walk through these things with the patients, we sometimes have to do. But it all kind of comes together, and there's a lot of different tool bags to pull from, depending on, what a patient can come in with. And this whole thing about, the coronavirus has definitely brought up old things for people, and it's kind of just opening up the doors for all different past traumas and healings to come through, and for people to kind of work through that process. And sometimes, they need a lot of help to do that. So it's kind of interesting how the practice has been transformed through this whole thing.
Wow, the practice has been transformed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Ruthie, you didn't get to chime in on that. Your feeling on all that's going on right now, especially I'm in New York, so, and you are too, Adrienne, with the mandates and the requirements. What is your feeling on that?
My immediate feeling right now is just, I've been coming to the realization lately of how big of an issue that this is. And I'm wondering how much are people recognizing how much this is going to change all of our realities. I've already gotten rid of the idea of going back to normal. Like, we are either going to progress through this and because of this, or there will be a put to death of the old, something along those lines. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but things are changing very quickly, and it's a really serious issue. I have coworkers that I work with. I am on a travel nurse assignment at the moment, and I've been hearing just over the past few days a lamenting from nurses, housekeepers, the people who clean the COVID rooms, and doctors and nurse practitioners and PAs. People are very concerned with these mandates, and they're all from people who have received their vaccines and wanted to get their vaccines, but are very concerned that and do not agree with these mandates. And is this going to be a problem in the nursing world? What I'm seeing is that a lot of staff nurses, so regular staff nurses, just like what you think of, you have a job, you have your regular pay. A lot of staff nurses are leaving. And so someone like me, a travel nurse, will come and will fill in that role for a matter of months or weeks. And what I'm seeing in the healthcare system and in the hospitals is that when we don't have any more staff nurses and it's all these travel nurses, there's an instability in the community of the hospital, relationships, those who know how things work, those who know, nurses who know how the doctors work, those little pieces.
Staff shortages due to the requirements.
Right. I heard that there was, I had a travel nurse recently tell me 170 nurses left her hospital.
Oh my goodness.
And our mandate, they just last week on Tuesday stated that they are requiring a mandate all of a sudden, because I signed on without any sort of mandate. And they just now are stating that they are going through this. They will take into account religious and medical exemptions. However, come December 5th, we will find out who's going to stay and who's going to leave. But from the inside, I'm hearing from the staff that a lot of people are digging in their heels, and we're going to lose a lot of staff, and we're anticipating that. And just last night, one of the workers was at the hospital was saying, like, I don't know, is the hospital going to have to shut down because of this? Because
Wow.
we're a very small hospital. So if even 20 people leave, it's going to make a major impact. Just last night, we only had 3 nurses on staff. It was hectic on a full moon.
There's like health ramifications. There's a lot of legal ramifications because of this. It's basically they're switching the rules after you're hired already, and they're changing protocol, and you didn't sign up for that.
Mhm.
So there's going to be a lot of lawsuits, in the years to come. What I wanted to touch on, guys, I'm seeing some very disturbing things coming from mainstream establishment platforms. And I think we talked about this, Ruthie. CNN is putting out propaganda, and a lot of mainstream platforms are putting out disinformation, but we can't contest it because it's, trusted sources. But CNN was putting out propaganda like, what should you do with your oh boy, I'll take that out. What should you do with your your family members who didn't take the shot? And basically they're creating this disinformation, this propaganda that the unjabbed are dangerous, the unjabbed are, risks, they're health risks. What would you say to this propaganda that is coming from trusted sources? You can start, Adrienne.
It really it's insanity to me. I don't even know what other word would be better than insanity, because it just doesn't make any common sense from anything I ever learned about viruses my entire adult life, even from high school bio. It's you learn there's certain things that you learn about viruses, and everything that they're saying is going against that. And honestly, in the beginning, when it all broke out in March of 2020, um, you know, I was nervous because I had the sense that it was man-made. So in my mind,
Mm,
I said, you know what, everything I know about viruses goes out the window, because everything I know is from viruses that, that need a host and, to replicate, and, the whole everything that you know about viruses. But if it's man-made, all of that goes out the window, and I'm dealing with something that I don't really know about. So I took everything that I knew, I put it in a box, and I started listening to those trusted sources. And almost immediately it was like, what is going on? Because in 1 second they were saying how, direct sunlight kills COVID.
I
And
heard
then
that as well.
they were saying, oh, you have to wear a mask outdoors. Okay, but if you have to wear a mask outdoors, how is the sunlight going to get to your nasal passageways and, your mouth to kill what might be there? And it just, everything they were saying was, kind of contradicting themselves and everything like that. So, I was just kind of quietly waiting, and I closed my practice for a few weeks just to kind of gather up information and see what we were dealing with, and kind of go back to what I knew, the basics of everything. Um, and it was pretty clear early on that they were lying. It's just you didn't know why, because
Mm,
it makes sense to me if the president lies about where Navy SEAL Team 6 is because they don't want to put them in danger. So it's like, okay, if they're lying because they want people to act a certain way to be safe, it's like, maybe that could flow for like 2 weeks, and then that's it. And then otherwise you have to, really be aware that people know what they need to do for their own health. And then they need to be open with, okay, exercise is important, getting good sleep is important, all of things that we know are important for anything, not just coronavirus, for all immune responses, for general health, well-being. um but they quickly just went insane with everything. And still to this day, the fact that, how Ruthie was saying that they're taking these nurses, that if anybody has natural immunity, it
mm,
is the nurses who were treating the people in
right.
the hospital with the wild variant. common sense, you don't need a medical degree to understand that that would be the case, that they would have natural immunity. And the fact that they're taking these people and they're bringing them, they're taking away their livelihoods, they're taking away their businesses, they're taking away their ability to worship the way that they want, to take care of the bodies the way that they want through going to the gym, everything like that. It just, nothing makes sense. And the fact that people are some people are, going with the flow. Some people are, trying to just kind of not, shall I say, like rock the boat, and it just, to me, it's absolute craziness.
It's madness. And jump in there, Ruthie.
Oh, there's so much I could say.
I'm biting my lip.
For one thing, after hearing from you, Adrienne, one thing that just jumped into my mind was hearing recently from a doctor who's just absolutely confused, speaking about, can I say the I word?
Yeah.
Ivermectin and treatment protocols, and he's saying how he takes care of himself. He goes to the gym, and he's like saying, I should have, like, medicine in the United States is just not operating in a way that is helping the people, and not so much words. That is what he said out loud at the nurse's station. And I'm just like, thank goodness someone else is questioning this, because science is meant to be questioned. It is not a religion. It is not something to be trusted or believed in. It is something to be proved and continuously evaluated, and to always have that openness. As I love science and I also love spirituality, but if I were to, let's say, have a conjecture and prove on my own personal first person experimental research, prove over and over to myself something, and someone who I trust, love, and respect, and I know who trusts, loves, and respects me, comes along and say, hey, did you know this new information and the way you've been doing things is maybe not the best? I want that. I want that, because I am willing to change anything about what I believe in and about my life and what's best for me, because that is science. It is always evolving, and I'm not a reductionist. I don't reduce all elements of what we can see and prove to its smallest parts, because we do know that there's so much more out there than what we can prove. So also I have that opening that there's always more that I may not know, because we have our five senses to prove things with, but we know that there's more out there because of quantum physics and the quantum realm that scientists have been talking about for a very long time. So I'm not a quantum physicist, and I know that quantum physicists don't even understand everything about it, but that's enough to know that there's so much more out there. So I'm always willing to change my stance on something that's scientific, and I have done that before in the past, so I know that of myself. So the fact that the propaganda that's out there saying trust the science and is like Instagram banished, you're not allowed to hashtag natural immunity. If we care for science, then why can't we evaluate all sides of this? And it naturally will make people suspicious, right, if there's only one narrative that's allowed. And to me, that's very scary, because I've seen that from what I've learned in history. I've seen that happen already. So it's just, I don't even know the word. It's just mind-boggling to me that people are still going along with the narrative in order to feel safe and a part of a society. But I also understand that, because we're all developing through our bodies and on our own spiritual and personal paths. And if we rely so much on the system to provide for us, of course, and if we're programmed into or brainwashed, so to speak, to believe a certain narrative from birth, then it's obvious that people would go along with it. But I don't know why some people have the ability to question and look at history. I'm no history major or anything, but I know enough to see what has happened in the past and realize that we don't want that. We don't want a dictatorship. We want to be free.
There's a few things that you said that are hugely important. We're like, for instance, right now, we're not in the age of science. We're in the age of scientism, which is, it was very frustrating to hear these people who try to, they think in their mind that they sound smart, but it's ignorance and willful stupidity. Believe the science, trust the science. Science, like you said, Ruthie, is questioning, is asking questions, being curious, always learning, always growing. Now it's trust the experts. Don't question the experts. And if you say it publicly, you're going to get deleted. You're going to get, we are in the age of scientism, and it's not science, and it's not progressive. And, you know, another thing that you said, which is an important buzzword that we have to address, there's a massive brainwashing going on. And you see it in social media comments. You see people are unable to think critically. They're not using logic or reason. They are programmed. They are completely brainwashed. And we spoke about something before, Ruthie, like, you know, people in families, they're bringing this brainwashing into their families. They're making decisions that, you know, they're causing family tensions. Oh, I don't want what so-and-so is not jabbed, so I don't think I should invite them. They lost their mind and their ability to reason and think clearly. So what would you guys say to that very, very serious societal problem where you're dealing with people who don't get it? Like you said, Ruthie, you can look at history and you see where the pharma companies have always been doing the same shtick, lying. They have billions in lawsuits for lying in the media. They're doing the same thing, but people are blind. They can't see what's going on. So how do we address this brainwashing problem?
Well, it's fascinating to me that some people, the brainwashing, the programming is working very well for some people. CNN will say, oh, well, they'll put the idea in their minds. Should you invite your unjabbed family members? And some people will dive right into fear mode and start to consider that, even though they got this jab because so that they could feel more safe. I know nurses that got the job and so they feel more safe because they did what they felt like they had to do for their health. So I think it's working for some people, but I'm pleasantly discovering that it's not working for other people. They're starting to see the inconsistency.
Yeah. And a lot of people are not seeing it.
Yeah, a lot of people, it's so true. A lot of people are, and it's crazy because you know, when you kind of have a little bit of an idea of how manipulation works and how people can kind of tap into that when they know how, it becomes so clear. And you know, the brain is you know, constantly, the subconscious mind is taking in all this data all the time, and it needs a way to delineate what's important, what's not important. And you know, it's called your reticular activating system, where you know, you're bringing all this information in, and then the brain has to figure out, okay, what do I pay attention to? And one of the criteria is survival. So anything that triggers a fear response in the brain automatically gets pushed to the front, into the forefront, and you pay attention to it. So the media and the politicians and these people who want to manipulate the way that you think, learn the right words, and not just the words, but the tone to say, and the kind of the nuanced, like, you know, like, I have this authority over you, you need to listen to me kind of speak. And they tap into that, and people just, they don't want to critically think a lot of the times. I've
Yeah.
noticed, like, I don't know if it's because of social media, I don't know if it's because of instant gratification with the phone, or I really don't know what it is. But when people are told, okay, you have to do your research, you have to sit down, you have to, you know, you have to look into this and read it for yourself, sometimes they don't want to. Sometimes they would rather somebody just give them the answer, and, oh, the answer is 1 shot, 2 shots, okay, perfect. Oh, and I don't have to worry about it, okay, perfect. Okay, you want me to do this now, okay, perfect. And they don't want to, they just want to go about their daily lives and just doing what they need to do. They don't want to have to think anything else about it. Whereas sometimes that becomes a challenge for people, you know, who think like us, where it does take a little bit more work to be healthy. And if you're worried about, you know, your general well-being, it does mean that you do have to make a little bit of time to exercise, and you do have to make a little bit of time to make your own food, and, you know, get your supplements and sleep well. And they know that, like, the people who are trying to take over our minds know how we think. They have their data, they collect all their data on us, and They, they see it and they know how to manipulate it. They're talking to our lizard brains. And I think that's the scary part. I think the answer to all of this is really to get every single body to remember their power, to remember this is what you have to do. You have to go into your own mind, quiet. You need quiet time. You need time to sit and reflect. You need to turn on your intuition and see, do I get a good feeling from this? Do I get the feeling that I'm being manipulated, or that somebody is trying to put thoughts in my brain that weren't there before, or put fears that weren't there before? Was I always afraid of my cousin who was, unjabbed, or, and kind of go from there, because it's a shame. It's a shame that people are being separated like this. And, I mean, what, overdoses went up by 30% in the last year,
Yeah,
I think.
I just read
That's
that. Yeah.
insanity. How come they're not talking about that? How come they're not talking about, how exercise helps, and how vitamin D helps, and, and acetylcysteine, like, I mean, countless things help against this thing. And they're not talking about any of it. All you hear about is the shot. And it really is a shame, because they're
Yeah.
trying to force it. They're trying to force just that narrative. Horrible.
Yeah. All you hear is either the mask or the shot. And like you said, yeah, there's no health advice, there's no diet, nutritional advice. And it's very obvious to those who can still think critically that their agenda is not your health and well-being. Their agenda is to further this shot agenda, because they want to move on to the the passports and have it required everywhere. There's an agenda behind this. But this is kind of actually therapy for me to hear people talk, with the mind. This is very refreshing. But it's also important for people to hear you guys, people who are in the healthcare industry, who are being hidden, to be frank with you. Your voices are being hidden, because you, Ruthie, were telling me there's lots of doctors and nurses who are not for any of what's going on. But, for obvious reasons, they don't speak publicly. And the ones that do, they're silenced quickly. They're taken off. They're villain, criminal. This is a bad censorship thing that we have going on. I have my approach to dealing with this, because I try to show people that, yeah, we're living in a system of strategic mind control and brainwashing. Even you were touching on that, Adrienne, how, like, even the wording, there's science. You guys are experts in the medical field, but I consider myself a self-proclaimed expert when it comes to this stuff. And there is things that I try to put out in my blogs to let people know, even the way they word everything, it's down to a science, and these people don't know. Did you get your flu shot? Just the use of the word your makes you think that, oh yeah, my flu shot. They have a way to, shut your brain off and just socialize you into, controlling you. And, when you're at CVS, so would you like your flu shot? You're already considering it just by the use of the word your. And, so there's a science to this. My way of attacking this is showing people the mind control and the techniques and what they do. You guys on the inside, what would your strategy be to undo this kind of mind control, people that can't open their mind? Like, how do you address this from the inside?
What a great question. This is the question of the times. And what immediately comes to me is, I find that those who have done a certain extent of what I would call shadow work have the ability to see the difference very clearly. So if you've ever had to recover from some sort of manipulation, or I know for myself, it was an emotionally abusive relationship. So I could see now clearly the difference. And it also comes with this level of responsibility and integrity with oneself, because now, as a work person walking around, I can see, or I can do the same thing, or choose to stand in authenticity with my spirit, which is that of unconditional love and universal love. So I want to offer that to other people. And I could see the difference in my brain. However, about 4 or 5 years ago, before I had that relationship and that experience, I was very easily manipulated, and I was doing the same thing that the media is doing. I was telling people to get their jobs. I was all for it because I had my trust and allegiance with this corporation that was promising me authority over other people, and this
Mm.
ego and this promise of progression in this field. And I felt like I was right. And it feels good to feel that way when you are spiritually undeveloped and emotionally unintelligent and things of that nature. So my answer to that would be those who have not had to come to that point in their life where they've hit that rock bottom or whatever it may be, where they are now having to look at the whole part of themselves. Because what I believe to be true, and I could be wrong, but I've been going with this notion that we we all have our individuality. We all are different people and completely unique, and at the same time we all carry a level of spirit and of humanness that is the same. And so we all carry this ability to be unconditionally loving, and we all carry the ability to be in the shadow realm of manipulation and all of that. And then if you haven't been willing to look at that part of yourself and see that that potential is there and make your peace with it, because just by looking at what you're afraid of is what makes it go away, in my experience. But if there's too much fear and it's overtaking you and you're not even willing to look at it because you don't want it to be true, um, then you are going to be more easily manipulated, I believe. So I think it starts with shadow work. It's all spiritual. We have to realize that what we see on the outside of ourselves is a reflection of the inside. And I think that when we continue to do our work on the inside, we will eventually see changes on the outside of reality as well.
Yeah, it's very true. I don't know if you want to jump in on that, Adrienne.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely agree with Ruthie. And here, it's a little rough because a lot of patients, have received the job, and if you felt like you needed it and you wanted it for your own health, that's one thing. I feel for the patients who felt um, that they had to because they were going to lose their jobs, they were going to, lose their livelihoods and things like that. To me, the whole thing about informed consent, there's two words. There's informed, where you know what you're doing to your body and what it could do, and what it's meant to do and everything like that. And the consent part, which to me, if you are going and getting the shot and crying every step of the way,
Wow.
there's no way that that's consent. If you, I mean, I don't understand how that legally is consent. And you're supposed to have informed consent whenever you have any sort of medical intervention, whether it be preventative or not. So in terms of having people kind of see and understand and kind of know everything that they're getting into, it is tricky because sometimes, I come across people and it's like they already have their defenses up, where they don't want to hear what you have to say because it negates what they already have kind of prescribed to. And for them to change their mind, it's almost like you're asking them to change their identity, or just kind of this cemented point of view. And it's not even theirs, but they don't even see it like that. They see it as something like it's almost like when you were talking about using the word your, it's their point of view. They take it on as a part of them. And sometimes kind of breaking through that barrier, it just takes a little bit of ease, for my patients who because I don't give medical advice as a chiropractor, but patients ask me all the time, and I just say, you should talk to your medical doctor about, getting your antibody levels tested before you get the booster, or you should talk to your medical doctor about maybe there's a T cell test you can take so that you could see, if your body would mount a natural response to, to the infection and things like that. Kind of just like trying to slowly open their mind that it's not just about this. There are so many different parts, and even when it comes to getting the shot, to make the shot as effective as it's supposed to be, which the only thing that they promised was 95% effectiveness towards serious illness and hospitalizations. This whole transmission thing, I don't know. I haven't been able to find it anywhere in, even like on Pfizer or Moderna. Like, oh, I shouldn't probably say that. Oh, sorry, low battery.
This is so less of a flagged word, those names, because
okay,
I could be talking about their many lawsuits on different topics.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. I'm not on the up, and I don't have social media, so I'm not on the up and up on like, the tags and everything like that. But I have yet to find where they promised against minimal transmission with the shots. I from what I could read, it was more about preventing serious illness and mortality rates and, hospitalizations and things like that. So, for them to threaten, oh, you might not be able to visit your family members, oh, you might not be able to do this or do that. It's, but why? Because if they already got it, then they should be fine. If you felt in your heart of hearts that was the right medical decision for you and you did it, then what's the problem? That should be it. That should be end of story, game over. But it's just not. And then, you just start looking into different things. I was looking into, how Pfizer was donating, so much money to all of these politicians, like 1.3 million across the states. It's like, that's a little gross. Why is that legal? Like, why is that allowed? And it really boggles my mind, because it really does seem like it's so out in the open. But when you speak about it, sometimes it almost sounds like a movie. It almost sounds like that can't be true. Like, that sounds like a story for, that you made up to kind of sensationalize everything. And, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. But it's not like, it's right there. statnews.com, it's right there. Pfizer, they sent all that money. Like, it's not just me. I didn't make that number up, and it's crazy that we live in this world right now. It's interesting.
So perhaps one of the most frustrating things is that they're doing their stunts right in front of our faces, and people cannot see it. And I was watching a New York One commercial, and they've got such a spell over the minds of the people. Like, the commercial was like, oh, now I can go visit my grandma. Now I can, like, things you could do anyway. They're holding you hostage mentally with things that you are free to do anyway, but making you think that you can't because, this is a madness. And Adrienne, you were talking about people with cemented viewpoints. I'm finding that with a lot of people, and a lot of intelligent people as well. A lot of people with a lot of degrees. I'm finding that they are sometimes worse and the most indoctrinated. And because, they have these degrees, they're arrogant and they're in their ego. So their minds are closed. So they're worse than the people who are reliant on experts for everything. Sometimes the expert, they're worse. And I think Mr. Islam said that they are the people with the degrees. They are the protectors of the status quo. In many ways, they're becoming worse. They're pushing the agenda for this machine, for this beast. Let's talk about, because, they're lying. The data doesn't make sense. The things that they say, and people who think clear, like present company, can see that the things that they're saying are not true. And now they're pushing the agenda. I saw that Big Bird was talking about the inoculations.
Oh my God, don't even. I have a 5-year-old. I'm like, no, if we have to boycott Sesame Street, then we're doing it, because there's no way on God's green earth. 5 years old. No.
5 years old. What are your feelings on that? And I got attacked by farmer trolls. Like, people don't really understand how fake social media has become and how bought off our media, our social media. I got attacked by farmer trolls. When you look at their accounts, they have no Facebook friends, or their friends are mute, or it's just weird accounts. Their last post was in August, October. So like, they're hiring trolls to, give this perception that everyone's like pro jab. Um, what are and this is what helps the mind control of the masses. They'll look at social media, think everybody is all pro jab, and they don't realize it's all fake, and everyone real is being censored off the internet. So, but what are your thoughts on them pushing and approving this experimental concoction for the children 5 to 11? Anyone?
I mean, I really, I hope and I pray that even with adults making the decision to make their lives easier, because I have come across a lot of people who took the jab for ease and to kind of just, get through their lives a little bit easier, be able to go where they wanted, be able to, to do whatever they needed to do. I hope that people would use a little bit more discretion when it comes to their children. And I do have that sense that, it's like everybody says, don't mess with the mama bear,
Yeah.
And when it comes to my son, I'm his stepmom, so I don't have I don't make his healthcare decisions. It's not definitively up to me. But if it was, I would 110% homeschool before I let him get that shot. If it became a mandate, it's just not, they don't know enough. They really, and they always say, oh, but it's been researched since the 60s, but it's okay. Yeah. But why then was it just approved now? Doesn't that raise a couple of red flags? Like, yes, it was, researched since the 60s, and now all of a sudden, whatever was wrong with it is fixed magically.
Magic. Yeah.
Right before the pandemic, it's like, oh, wait, that problem we've been having for 6 decades. Oh, look, it's gone. How? That's not the way it works. But
and doesn't the VIIRS reporting system have up to, I think it's up to 18,000 deaths reported already?
And I bet that's undercounted too.
It's undercounted. And that's, that's a good point. Even the ones that they admit to, you got to understand that there's a lot more than that, because for them to admit one COVID related death, like, they really, 18,000 that they admit to, and they underreport, they hide those statistics, But, Ruthie, your thoughts on the push for the children now?
Even as a practitioner, just hitting on VIIRS real quick, even as a practitioner, it's difficult for me to report VIIRS because there's so much to consider and to find correlation. And I have patients who have gotten their jabs coming in with some really weird and concerning symptoms, but how am I supposed to put those together, and what's the time frame of receiving it and then getting symptoms, which is why their game is so good of slowly injecting, here's another booster, because then what we start to see is, hitting on propaganda again, them normalizing, oh, heart disease, heart risk, kids have strokes too. What? I saw that on the side of a bus.
Yeah.
Kids have strokes too. And the blood clots, and oh man, it's just really concerning. I overheard a doctor saying how concerned he is that he was like, I understand for adults, but kids, he said they have an over 99% survival rate with minimal medical issues or health issues from getting the virus anyway. And why do we need to push this on them? And it's so unfair for the kids, especially with the masks. I'm super concerned with the masks in school and their ability to learn. Hearing stories about this little girl threw up in her mask, and she went to the nurse.
Oh my gosh.
She kept the mask on with her vomit. She was that terrified. She can't walk in the halls without a mask. Things like that. Nosebleed kids that are impoverished, underdeveloped families, and not coming in with appropriate masks, and then the impact on the environment. And when our environment isn't okay, we aren't okay. So there's so many issues with the children. The fact that they can't sit at their desks without a mask, even though they do push them 6 feet apart, but we can all sit at restaurants shoulder to shoulder.
Wow.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I can go on ad nauseum about the mask. I did a few videos about the mask, and I just gave up because I feel that people are too far gone. Even people who are against the shots they're in this mask program, and they don't understand that they've been discussing this since at least 2009, like, scenarios for pandemics. They were going to mandate masks and trying to convince people that, like, you know what, it's not necessary. At least at this point, it's not necessary. It's actually harmful to you to be walking around breathing in your own CO2 all day, at the mall. This is not good. And I actually had a guest on another podcast, Clinton, who was helping someone who developed an ailment because he was wearing masks, too much. And, this mask program, and you said something else in another conversation, Ruthie. Like, what was your feeling about the mask or what it caused in some people?
Yes. Well, the issue is oral health and dental issues. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, I listened to her on, I think it's called Back to You. She discussed masks and how it deteriorates your oral health. And I was working in the ER in 2020 wearing a mask. And those who have a propensity for dental infections, and I had a root canal tooth, I had to get that tooth removed last year.
Wow.
I had an abscess that slowly developed, and I have to consider, is it because I wore a mask so frequently? Because we know this, it's so basic. Bacteria, what environments does bacteria love? Warm, moist, dark environments so it can grow. So if I'm keeping all of my exhaled CO2 and keeping all of the bacteria that's in my mouth. I mean, when we get dog bites or human bites in the ER, I've always been told that human bites are far more infectious than an animal bite. We have so many different types of bacteria and pathogens in our mouth. So why do we want to keep that right in front of us in a dark, moist, trapped place? It just the mask thing doesn't make sense to me because of that. And then also, as a nurse before the demic, we had to get fitted for any seriously infectious disease, such as tuberculosis or disseminated shingles, or there's a whole list of infectious diseases that we have to wear an N95 mask for. And they're very serious on us getting our PPD, our TB tests annually, plus mask fit testing. We have to get mask fit for any travel nurse job. In addition to all the documents I have to provide, I have to get a mask fit test. And it's like a 15 to 20-minute process where you sit in an office and they put a big barrier over your head and your shoulders and spray something, and you wear a certain type of mask, and they have to make sure that what they sprayed, you can't smell it. And if you do smell it, then they have to give you a new one, and they size you for it. So the N95s, you're supposed to be fitted for that so that it actually works. But the fact that they want to make masks all over the whole country, whether it's cloth or whether it's
bandana, your stock.
as long as it's there, then you're a part of.
It's your obedience that they want. They could give a damn about COVID.
And I see this in people. I had, when I was doing home health nursing for a bit this past year, I had someone who, she's very serious about getting her jabs and wearing her mask, but she was like, she just loved me as a nurse, and she gave me a hug, and she was like, oh, well, it's okay because we're safe. We're safe people, so it's okay.
That's good.
Sorry.
I feel like I'm in an episode of The Twilight Zone, and I just keep waking up in this reality that is just gone bonkers. Like, these people are not thinking at all. Adrienne, what is your thoughts on the mask? I've been talking about this and I gave up.
Yeah, the mask thing, it's interesting because it does, like, looking at it from a scientific lens, it kind of does seem like it's more, they make it so that it's more of a reminder, like, look, we're still going through this, like, look, everybody has a mask on, and it kind of it kind of helps, remind people, look, it's not over, and things like that, because and I forgot where I read this, but supposedly the viral particles that we're dealing with COVID go right through most masks except for
I knew that.
N95s, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and especially if they're not fitted. And I mean, you in the beginning, I mean, they were making masks out of everything, and still, even to this day, like if you walk in, in anywhere, they just want to see something on your face. They don't really care. Like it's just like, okay, like yes, you're complying with this, perfect, okay, good. It doesn't matter how actually effective it is. It
yeah,
doesn't matter. And that's what blows my mind about all this too. you know Really, the only way to know if you have and could spread, to get tested. And so what, a card that says like, oh, look what I have, I got this shot, but I could still have and spread it.
hmm,
But they don't really care about that. They just want to see, are you complying?
right,
If they really were concerned about stopping the spread, slowing down the spread, everything like that, it would be okay, everybody get tested. Or it would be something a little bit more, at least a little bit more scientific. I mean, come on. Like you were saying before, trust the science. It's really, I don't see how we got here. And that's not true. I can definitely see how we got here, but I never would have thought 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, I never would have
yeah,
thought. At least New Yorkers. I really could only speak to New York, but
right.
at least New Yorkers, I really don't understand how we got here, because I never thought we would fall for a lot of this.
I am very surprised. I mean, I'm in this realm of talking about these things and seeing these things before they happen, and I didn't think because they sound crazy and like conspiracy theories, like back in 2009. But to see it unfold and everybody just like mindless lemmings just going along, and then we're in the mess, I can't believe it. I mean, I knew it, but I can't believe it. But it's important to realize that they're using like almost Nazi Germany level propaganda and mind control techniques through media, through, I remember being in New York, and I was riding the bus, and everything was, remember, the wear your mask. There's just programming everywhere, the loudspeaker, the signs on the bus, the mask, shots, shots, shots. People are undergoing severe mind control. And I want to caution people to understand that when there's a GI Joe saying that's like I always repeat, because it's so true. Sometimes they put spiritual truths and things in TV, commercial, movies, and there's one thing that GI Joe at the end of every episode, they said, and knowing is half the battle.
Mm.
And that is a powerful truth. When you don't know anything, you're going to fall for everything. When you know that the powers that be are doing that, when you know that there's think tanks studying human behavior, how can we manipulate? How can we control these people? When you know all of that, you can see it when it unfolds, like we do. But when people live their lives completely clueless, completely ignorant of the systems set up against them, there's a book, Lies, my teacher told me. There's a lot of books that break down in the education system how they manipulate, how they brainwash. If you just don't know any of that stuff, you're just gonna fall for anything. You're gonna be one of these people walking around the mask, you can't take it off, And I think that is something that we need to address. And it kind of, especially me as a content creator, informing people, I kind of threw my hands up at one point, like, you know what? I can't counter the systems of indoctrination are so powerful, so formidable, that I stopped posting as much, because I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure I can handle this. Like, these people are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them are not coming back. They're just gone. They're programmed. And I'm not sure what the solution would be, but it looked like you were saying something, Ruthie.
No, I'm just thinking like, what would the solution be? And right now I'm in the camp of empowering those who do want to find their own sense of self-authority and self-trust and self-power, and just reminding people that they're not alone. And I intentionally went back to the hospital. It's been 5 weeks, and I just wanted to know more, a bigger piece of what's going on. And I'm very glad that I did, because I feel so much less alone now, because I see that there is so much propaganda that I was subjected to just by looking through Instagram. You see, like, if I look at Instagram, because of everyone I follow, it's, even though it's from the side that I align more with, it's, there's still a lot of fear out there, and it makes you feel like you're crazy and like you're alone. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Now I see how much it is just propaganda that's on there on social media, not just on TV, but also for those of us who use our social media. If you have your own business and you're trying to break away from the matrix or these corporations that you're not aligned with ethically, there is, I believe now that there are a lot more people who understand where we're at than you would think just by looking at your screens.
Right. And like we're close to the hour mark, and I told Adrienne that we'd be about an hour. So like, Adrienne, I guess if we can have like parting words, because I do see a shift change. I do see people waking up, and a lot of people, and there was a meme or something that went around, and it was very good. The crazier they act, the more people wake up, and the more people wake up, the crazier it was a really good meme. I'm sure you saw that. And I think we're at that point where, you know, the powers that be, they're bribing people with hamburgers, they're giving out lottery tickets, they're doing a lot of weird stuff, and they're firing nurses during a pandemic. So they're doing a lot of things to show people who still have a brain left, this is not the side of good. This is evil. This is not the right side of history. And if you don't see it, you know, you don't have eyes to see. So what would you say, Adrienne, to kind of empower people who are trying to remain strong in this insane environment, and you know they're feeling pressures from all around, and maybe their job to take the shot? What would you say to empower these people, and just, you know, your viewpoint on the shots and what people should do to remain in their power?
So a lot. So I would say a lot.
Let it rip.
I first, I first want to tell you, I totally, you know, I get that sense of like sometimes you feel like what's the point, you know, and it feels very weighed down. Everything feels very heavy, you know, right now. But I will say that when you put the content out there, the people who need to find it will find it, and you never know what piece of information you're going to put out that one person is going to find at the exact right time, that's going to create a butterfly effect that might wake up the world. That
Yeah.
one little piece of information could be the spark to just ignite everything, because it is a very unstable system that they have. It's a house of cards. It will fall. It's just a matter of when, but it will fall. Right now, what they believe that they're doing, or at least what I believe they believe they're doing, is they're taking people and they're pushing them down, and they're pushing them down. Okay, these people didn't get the shot. What can we give them? Oh, let's try $100. Let's try $500. Ooh, let's try taking their jobs away. And they're seeing who they could pick off. What they don't see is the people like you, like Ruthie, like myself, who are just being sharpened. Your resolve is being sharpened. You're becoming a warrior against all of these things, all of these, you know, mind mess ups, and all of these people who are trying to push everybody down. You know, every people who are in our camp of trying to find the truth and relay the truth, they are making us stronger. And because it's the truth, it's already stronger than the lie. Energetically speaking, the truth is always going to reach further in frequency, and it's always going to kind of like a cohesive beam shoot through all of the negativity and all of the kind of shrine of disbelief and everything going on. It's like a veil. It's going to cut through that just like a beam, and the truth is always, always, always 110% of the time going to win. It's just a matter of when. I will say that, you know, if you read a book, Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, he's a physicist, I believe, I think, and he calibrated the frequency of different emotions, and love is always at the top, you know. Shame is at the bottom. You would think fear would be at the bottom, or at least I thought, but it's
That's what I
shame.
thought.
And shame, you know, it's because shame will kind of will separate you from your brothers and your sisters, because you don't want them to see the truth. You know, you don't want them to see things you just don't want them to see. So I believe that you only need a small percent of the population. I believe 3 or 4% of the population won the American Revolution. We just need a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the people who are sharpened in their resolve, who will cut through the lies like a beam, and all of their, unstable house of cards will fall to the ground without them even knowing what happened.
Right.
They don't even know what they're doing to us.
Right.
They have no idea what they're making by doing all of this. And by the time they realize, it'll be too late, and we will have won.
That's amazing. That's incredible. And it's like, it's really refreshing to be on this side of the pendulum swing. I think that, yeah, this shift is happening. But that was very powerful, Adrienne. Thank you for that. And I'm sure the people watching eventually will really take a lot from that. That was great to hear. Ruthie?
Wow, that was so powerful. I resonate completely with what you said, Dr. Adrienne. I'm just sitting here and
I know, I'm in real time, just really appreciate it.
It's true, quality over quantity. I guess things that I would add from my life experiences right now and perspective is just more connection and more creation, because that shame is or fear, or whatever those low vibe emotions are, is what's going to separate us. I mean, look at the quarantining and the shutting down and the disinformation. These are all things, not inviting family members to holidays and things. These are all ways to separate us. And when we are separated, then it keeps us in that lower vibration of fear. So the more that those of us who are willing to stand in love and desire to, and are anchoring that in intentionally, the more that we can connect in person and through any means that we can, then we will become so much stronger, because 1 and 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 and 1 is massive, exponentially more powerful, because we have that human spirit connection, and it does cut through, like a dog sniffing out something. It's not going to sit there and say, oh, should I sniff it? Is this really smelling? Like, we humans, we have that prefrontal cortex where we sit and think about it. But truth at the end of the day will cut. I totally believe that, Adrienne. Truth will cut through all of the veils of confusion and lies once we're unanimous with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Reminds me of a song, Ruthie.
Which one?
Wonder what that could be. It's the inside. But no, that's really powerful, guys. And I think, I wasn't expecting that in this podcast. I was just having a conversation with you guys as professionals, but it actually kind of is something that I'm actually going to be proud to post, because you have a lot of content creators that I respect, but there's a lot of doom and gloom and, and ranting and but I think that, what you guys are saying is very true. And, we don't need the world to wake up. You just need that 300, and like you guys are saying, yeah, this is going to turn around. And, the truth does win out in the end. Light does win. And it's important for people to realize that. And I'm sure that, people will really, really, really appreciate that, from you guys. So thank you guys. So I'm not sure if you guys have any last words.
Funny you say that, because there is one last thing I would like to say. Sure. Only because recently, a few months ago, I was in a deep spiritual session, and it became very clear to me that we live in this illusion of duality. And when you are going to contest and fight like a war, the paradigm has always been, oh, if someone's attacking you, you go to war, you fight back. And there's reason in that. But I also realized that if you are going to play that game of duality of like 1 and 1, let's say you're in a conversation and someone's gossiping, and now you're brought into it and you have something to add or you say something, you're already in that gossip. But the only way to not be in the gossip conversation is to not acknowledge it, like not let it not let yourself energetically go down to that level and be there. So that's what I'm been playing with, is to not, I mean, yes, we have to be aware and share truth and everything, but there comes to a point where we elevate beyond that and we don't have to go tit for tat back and forth, because if we're playing in that level, we're playing with them, and that makes it still alive and still vibrant and still prevalent on that earth. So we have to
Co-creating that.
Exactly, like co-creating.
Yeah. Very, 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 very true. Yeah, I'm excited to post this. I'm gonna post must see. Yeah,
y'all.
this was good, and I'm sure your professional perspective will be appreciated. So, I thank you guys.
Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, but this was great. All right, so thank you. Much love to you guys.
All right, sounds good.
Bye,
All right,
guys.
take care, guys.